today we're going to be speaking about Nelson Mandela, and we have with us students who have prepared information that they want to share with us. So we're just going to have a chat, and they're going to tell us research that they've done on Mandela, just so that we get clued up about what Ubaba as we know him, Utata, Nelson Mandela has done for this nation. We're going to start with Beverly.
So, humble greetings to you all. My name is Beverly, and I have prepared humble greetings. I am Beverly Maromo. I am grateful for this given opportunity to share my knowledge as we are remembering Nelson Mandela, a man of peace, a man who showed the world what forgiveness looks like, a visionary man who could see the big picture. I will share with you little information about Nelson Mandela's 27 years of imprisonment and share my knowledge as a youth. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, most of them isolated on Robben Island off the coast of Cape Town, South Africa. His encounters with visitors from the outside world were brief and strictly controlled. He spent much of his time alone, uncertain of whether he would emerge alive. Many people are unaware that Nelson Mandela was sent to prison on Robben Island twice. The first time was a brief period in 1963, about 6 months after he had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for leaving the country illegally and inciting a strike initially held at Pretoria Local Island in May 1963. And then on June 30, 1963, he was inexplicably returned to Pretoria. After he had been there for about a month, his colleagues were arrested and they stood trial together for sabotage in the Rivonia trial. Mr. Mandela and the 7 others were sent to life imprisonment on 12 June 1964. He remained on Robben Island until the end of March 1986, after which he was transferred to Pollsmoor prison on the mainland. Then, a few months in the hospitals, he was sent to Victor Verster prison in December 1988, from where he was freed on 11 February 1990. Mandela's release flooded South Africans' heart with relief and joy or terror, depending on where your allegiance was during the Civil War. Several hours after being released, he made his way to the podium at the Grand Parade grounds outside Cape Town City Hall. There, 100,000 people waited to hear the voice of the man that had been silenced for 27 years too long. Most gathered crowd had never heard him speak before. In a speech frequently drawn out by the roars from the crowd, Mandela said, "Comrade and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom. I stand before you not as a prophet, but as a servant of you people. Today, the majority of South Africans, black and white, recognize that apartheid has no future. It has to be ended by our decisive mass action. We have waited too long for our freedom." Ladies and gentlemen, that day was a new beginning for South Africa. As a youth, I learned that when you find a cause worth fighting for, you become passionate, and passion fuels the fires of perseverance. Secondly, I also learned that in whatever we do, we should always do it in truth without evil agendas. Forgiveness and peace is the most important thing, because if Mandela didn't forgive, we would have asked for revenge, but no, he fought for forgiveness and peace. If we put our mind to something, regardless of the circumstances or obstacles, we will always overcome. And thirdly, this is something that I learned from the 27 years of Mandela in prison, not being selfish, but being selfless. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. That is so beautiful. I think I would like us to engage that piece that Beverly has just shared with us, which is an epoch that was quite pressurizing for us here in the country, and as well as Nelson Mandela, as we can imagine, behind the cells in prison. You know, so we today we're focusing on pressure, and we do draw quite a lot, as Beverly has said, that pressure does make us become great, because when we've gone through the hard times, and we grow stronger because we become resilient. I would like us to look deeper into that period. I was around 11 years of age when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. Atteridgeville was a different place. I mean, we couldn't stay in the houses. We were out there celebrating the release. And at that age, I had no idea what Nelson Mandela had actually done for the country. I was just lost in the, in the excitement. But looking back at the period now, wow, one gets to understand what a big thing he had done. He had sacrificed his life. And he had sacrificed moments that he could have shared with his children. One of those that he loses just this past week, and we have not. I think we buried her yesterday, actually. So yeah, it's quite a historic moment for us here in South Africa. And I'd like to open the platform if there's anybody that would like to ask any questions to Beverly and us here in South Africa regarding Nelson Mandela's life.
So I have a question, Sumi.
Yeah.
One of the things that's always been interesting to me, such a powerful sacrifice that Madiba made, but I know that there were some people that didn't really agree with how, how that transition took place. But I'm just curious from your perspective, and even from the young people, I'm really curious, how do you think that his sacrifice really impacted how South Africa was able to transition out of apartheid? Because I think that transition was a lot smoother than what we saw here in the United States, or what we're continuing to see here. So I'm just curious, from the South African perspective, like how, because it could have went a lot of different ways, but from your opinion, how was that sacrifice able to help that transition, and how is it being affected today?
Nelson Mandela's release really assisted us quite a lot to transition from a period that could have brought war in South Africa, actually, to the west of our township, right behind this picture that you see here in that direction. There is a plant that was erected by the apartheid government, which currently today works as a scientific center for nuclear energy. And the Pelindaba High School students that we work with, they do quite a lot of research in partnership with that plant to learn about the nuclear energy. But the reason that it was put in place, as a matter of fact, it was put in place in case the white government had to fight and retaliate. And the plan was to release nuclear energy in South Africa should things go that bad. And we have the plant right here. It has been dismantled. And that was what de Klerk, who was the president when Mandela was released, had to. I think he was pressurized by the world to reach to the decisions that he came to as well. It wasn't of his own. And the nuclear plant was dismantled. But one gets an idea that we would have been in a very bloody war within the country had Mandela not come to the agreement that he came to, which was let us forgive and not point at each other and leave the past behind and move forward. Although even that transition has not necessarily been a perfect transition, because it's a transition that's filled with a whole lot of emotions that are unclear, a whole lot of anger, and racism that didn't just disappear with the change of government the change of regime when it happened. But we can certainly say that a lot of lives were saved. A lot of lives were lost, but because of the decisions that were made then by the iconic figures such as Nelson Mandela, a lot of lives were saved as well. Currently within the country, there's a whole lot of disputes and conversations about what should have actually happened. There's people who feel that they have been sold out by the agreement that Nelson Mandela made when he was being released out of prison. He signed a sunset clause, which basically was an agreement of how the economic welfare of the country was going to be divided. And in that sunset clause, the white people were agreeing to give the government to Black people, yet they were holding on to the economic power of the country. They were not letting go of the economic muscle that they held. And one of the things that they held on to is the land that they took from Black people when they came into the country. So the Sunset Clause was a negotiation of that land that was taken from us. The Sunset Clause was saying that after a period of time, the white people will sell off the land to Black people within the country at a reasonable time, at a reasonable price, so that they can be ownership within the country. And I'm using here Black and white as so let's say white and the other races, but understand my Black and white in that sense. So people who were dispossessed of the land to get back the share of the land through the sale of the land. So there are people who still dispute how the Sunset Clause could have been drafted, that we should have claimed the land from the onset. But I suppose we're never going to get a perfect negotiation.
Umi,
yeah.
That was great. I want to rewind this back approximately 2 years ago. We were in South Africa. 86 of us, Los Angeles, Texas, DC, Tennessee, and we were able to not only reflect on what we read about Mandela, but we were actually, thanks to you, able to go to Soweto. We were able to view the museum. We were able to go to the Soweto Theater. We were able to go to Kliptown, where the proclamation was signed. And we were able to have a Steam the Block concert in the Soweto Theater. And so just walking through Soweto and seeing his home, we walked in his home. And so all the things you read about came to reality by walking in some of the footsteps in which he walked. And so those of us that went, I know it made us feel like we were walking on holy ground. I know I did. So thanks to Tumi and everyone else in South Africa that allowed us to experience that. Thank you.